All right. Hey, everybody. You ready for what's coming up next? I don't think you're ready. It's going to be so fun. So, hey, we just want to welcome folks. Come on down, have a seat if you'd like, and support our performers up here. And our next folks are some dear, dear friends of mine, and I'm excited to introduce the Transgender Podcast, which is the funny, touching, and informative chronicle of Raven, a transgender system, and Cam, her cisgender dad, as they grow together and hate bigots. So let's hear it. Let's welcome them up here, folks.
The bear?
The bear, yeah.
The one that likes marmalade?
Yep. Did you say marmalade?
Some marmalade. Oh, man. Hey, happy Trans Joy Fest.
Happy Trans Joy Fest, everyone. Oh, so excited to be here now for our third year in a row.
Woo!
Hi, we're Raven, a transgender system.
And I'm Cam, your dad.
And this is The Transgender, a podcast chronicling our transition.
And a cisgender man learning how to support it.
So, Cam, tell me, why is our next label AI is funnier than you?
Well, here's the thing that I learned last night. I was trying to figure out what we were going to do for our opening topic today. And I thought it would be super funny to just ask AI what it thought about some bad advice to give transphobes. So I went into ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, give me some bad advice to give transphobes. And I want to share with you some of its insights because it is, in fact, funnier than me. Number 1, invest in a tinfoil hat. Since you believe all this is a conspiracy, a stylish tinfoil hat will protect you from those mind-controlling progressive ideas.
Excellent idea. Yes, please show yourself that you are a bigot by putting a tinfoil hat on. It will mark you as a very cool person to talk to.
Learn to time travel. If you can invent a time machine, you can go back to the era when your outdated views were the norm. Just don't forget to take a dictionary to explain all those big words. What?
Gonna take a modern day dictionary back in time to the 70s?
Yeah, what era do we go to? Avoid mirrors. Since introspection and self-reflection are key to personal growth, avoiding mirrors will help you stay blissfully unaware of your own flaws.
That's it. Transphobes are vampires, I guess. Yeah. Avoid mirrors.
Can't see yourself in the mirror. Wear blinders. Horse blinders will help you avoid seeing anyone or anything that challenges your narrow worldview.
We're at Trans Joy Fest, but I think everybody is thinking the same thing that I am thinking here. I'm not going to say it, though.
Oh, yeah. Horse blinders.
Horse blinders.
All right, a couple more. Start a mime club. Only communicate through mime. No words, no pronouns, no problem. It literally... Okay, again, this is a robot that came up with this, and I'm very happy. Invent an anti-progress shield. Pretend you have an invisible shield that repels any progressive thoughts or ideas. Just don't be surprised if it doesn't actually work.
The power of anti-queer compels you.
All right, and one last one. Make a no-change zone. Designate your home as a no-change zone where nothing new or progressive is allowed. Enjoy the comfort of stagnation.
To the one bigot who listens to our podcast out of hate, please label your house as a no-change zone so I know exactly where you live and how to avoid you.
Yes. So there you go. That's what AI has to say.
It was funny. I would not say that AI is funnier than you, though. I'm not going to support the robot apocalypse. So,
what are we talking about today?
I wanted to talk about why euphoria is the most important reason for existence, and also why we need a Trans Joy Fest in our lives.
I love that.
So, euphoria, as we've talked about many times for our listeners who've heard us many times, Euphoria is a concept that is kind of the opposite of dysphoria. So dysphoria, if we're looking at the DSM-5, is pretty much that thing that trans people have. And that's not a good definition.
No,
it's
not,
not.
well, one, we hate the DSM-5.
Yeah.
We did a whole episode on that. It's the worst.
And so what I've been advocating for is switching away from a dysphoria model where you're looking at trans folks through this lens of negativity, where you're like, oh, well, you are trans because you have these negative experiences, and starting to look at things through a positive lens, through euphoria. And so this is something that not just trans people can experience, though. I want everybody to do an activity here. I want you to think about the last time that you did something that made you feel good about your gender. That can be getting a new pair of shoes. That can be dressing really nicely. That can be being a gremlin in pajamas. Doesn't matter. I want you to think about that and kind of hold on to that.
And this may be new for some of you. Most people don't think about gender as much as Anna and I do, because this is like our job. But we think it's important for cis people as well to think about the things that make them feel euphoric, because that's the part that's going to help trans people live their best lives.
Exactly. So when we're looking at a euphoria model, and we've got this event called Trans Joy Fest, why? Why are we looking at the positivity here?
Well, we have to. We did have Trans Visibility Day, which is a day that we focus on some of the harder issues that face trans people.
We've got Trans Day of Remembrance, which is a very hard day for a lot of us. I know a lot of us have trans siblings, trans friends, trans people in our lives who we've lost, and so that's a day to remember them, and that can be really impactful as well. And so a Trans Joy Fest, and looking at the trans experience as a positive thing, what that's doing is it's really allowing us the space and opportunity to allow ourselves to take up space and be positive and show the world that it's okay to be trans.
And look at all the space you all are taking up today. I mean, this is amazing to see all of you and all these vendors and everybody coming out to be a part of this, whether you're cis or trans or gender questioning or whatever's going on in your gender. It's amazing that you're here to support this.
It really, really is. And I want to thank every single one of you for coming today, because it means a lot that you are here and taking up this space with us. Again, whether you are an ally, cisgender, whether you're questioning, whether you are having to hide your identity for safety reasons or another reason, or if you are openly proud to be trans. Thank you all.
Love you.
So our main topic today is I wanted to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart, which is the intersection between disability and pride. We're in Pride Month. Next month is Disability Awareness and Pride Month. So what is that intersectionality? Cam, do you know anything about the intersectionality between disability and pride?
Well, largely because you have been teaching me. But, we talk about intersectionality a lot in our podcast because we believe that all the identities that somebody has all leads to their experiences in the world and often leads to their negative experiences in the world. And so one of the things that we talk about is how we can celebrate trans joy, but also understanding that disability is one of the factors that is in your life and something that you have to be aware of and that I need to be aware of as your dad.
Exactly.
And somebody who supports you.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm a disabled person myself, and I wear that proudly on my chest. Unfortunately, my disability is not visible to a lot of people. It's an invisible disability, and that can be really hard for people to understand and really give anything about, give any respect to, give any awareness to. And so I wanted to share some stats with you and just talk a little bit about why prides need to be more inclusive.
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about queer and trans inclusive, because we're pretty good at that, at least now. What I'm talking about is inclusive of all people, of all abilities. So I've got some stats for you here. I'm not expecting you to memorize them, but I would like you to just kind of think about them. So the Human Rights Center, an amazing organization that has done so much good work for the queer and trans community, analyzed some data specifically around disabled people and found that 1/3 of all queer and trans people self-identified as disabled.
That's a huge percentage.
That's 36%, which is wild. How many cisgender folks, cishet folks, do you think identified as disabled?
Said like 20?
Close. It's 25%.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, about 24 actually. So that's about a quarter of cisgender and heterosexual folks. So statistically, that means that queer and trans folks are way more likely to have a disability and self-disclose that than a heterosexual and cisgender person.
And when we're defining disability here, is this mental and physical disabilities? Is this physical disability? What?
This is everything. So this is sensory, this is auditory, visual, mobility, any sort of disability you can think of.
Got it.
And so I want to break down the stats even more, because that gives you a pretty good picture of like, okay, so the queer community is a little bit more likely to have a disability, or at least disclose that, than the heterosexual cisgender community, right? Of all of the people who answered the survey, how many do you think of the trans population self-identified as being disabled?
Wait, that wasn't that 36%?
So that was combining trans and queer.
So we're getting closer to 50 then, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
So trans people identified at a 52% rate of having a disability.
Hey, will somebody turn off that helicopter? Oh, sorry.
Get out of here! Off my lawn. That's what you sound like.
Yes, I'm getting grumpier in my old age.
So 52% of trans people self-identified as having a disability. That is a crazy number.
Yeah, that is.
Like, that is so many people. And something that's even more, like, crazy to think about here is that cisgender people who are queer represented about 32%.
Interesting.
So queer people have a higher likelihood of having a disability than their cisgender counterpart,
right?
Cishet counterparts. Trans people are even more likely to have a disability and self-disclose that than their cis queer.
And again, this idea of self-disclosure, it's something we talk about a lot. We often say that there's more recognition of our disabilities and mental health concerns because people who are questioning their gender are often doing more self-reflection than your average cisgender person. And so, again, it's not necessarily that there's probably higher numbers of cisgender people out there with mental health concerns, but they're not identifying them because they are not doing the kind of self-discovery that a trans person likely is.
Exactly. And that's why it's really important to note that this is self-disclosed numbers. These are numbers that people themselves have said, I identify as having a disability. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's indicative of everyone who has a disability. There are a lot of reasons people may not want to self-disclose having a disability.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is that trans people are likely already facing a lot of discrimination, and 52% of them are also identifying as having a disability.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy amount. Like, that is significant.
And that just makes me think about how important it is, again, for accessibility to be built into Pride and Trans Joy Fest. And, we're glad to have a space like this that's fairly accessible, but it's something that we need to be thinking about every single time that we plan events for queer spaces, because we want to make sure that everybody can be involved.
And so maybe this is where I can add a call to action for all of you. We're in Pride Month. There are so many Prides going on. Duluthians, our Pride doesn't happen until
September.
Whatever. But in this Pride Month, and in Disability Pride Month, next month, July, and in September, when our Pride is, I want you to be thinking about what is at least one thing that is inaccessible to someone with a disability. And that's not just mobility-wise. We're on grass out here.
Right.
That can be really hard for a lot of people who might have a movement disability, who might have something that prevents them from being able to walk on unsteady terrain. But there are also other things that we can be thinking about. Thankfully, this year, we have 2 amazing ASL interpreters, which is incredible.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you, friends.
We're so glad you're here.
But that's something that we're able to do for people who might have an auditory disability. Visual disabilities. A lot of the things out here are very colorful and very, you need to be able to see to get around effectively and things. And that can also be really hard. So when we're thinking about... Oh, and sorry, one more thing that I totally forgot. That's really important too. Sensory.
Yeah. I was thinking about Twin Cities Pride. We went last year and it was just wall-to-wall people. We were touching shoulders with the masses and It was really overwhelming. I mean, I get way overstimulated, but for Anna and Andre in particular, that was a really challenging, event. One of the things they provided, though, was a sensory tent, which I thought was really smart.
Yeah. And this year we've got Live Well, Northern Minnesota, Northern Wisconsin, who's providing a space that's kind of secluded and has some of that sensory space there, but we don't really have a good sensory tent. Yeah. And so these are things that I, as an organizer, should be thinking about as well, but also all of you should also be thinking about and making note of and saying, what is something that either I, myself, could see that I need. So, maybe next year we need to be somewhere that has more paved areas, or vendors need to be more easily accessible, or something like that. Or you can think about your disabled allies, your disabled peers, the people who don't have the same ability needs as you, and who may have something else. And you can think, okay, so there wasn't a sensory tent. Maybe I should make note of that and send it to the organizers next year and be like, hey, next year I'd really like to have a sensory tent because I saw... we've got a lovely person over there who has headphones on, Yeah. And that would be lovely to have as something that we can have next year. Perfect. You can do that. You can make the change that you want to see, especially for Pride events. You just need to put in that effort.
I love this. Well, it's definitely something that I'm going to make sure I'm more cognizant of as I'm planning things in the world. And how are you going to prop up not just trans experiences, but also disabled experiences?
Because the truth of the matter is, Pride is not for everyone if disabled people are not accounted for. And just to even extend that even more, Pride is not for everyone if you have uniformed police officers there. That's a whole other debate, but Pride is not for everyone if you have uniformed officers.
Make this as accessible as possible.
And so I want to thank, again, Security, who's here again for the second year now. Thank you, Security, for being here. You guys are awesome. And to all of our volunteers who are helping to keep this event as safe as possible without needing uniformed officers here.
Yeah, I love that. If you have questions about transitioning or supporting someone who is transitioning and you'd like us to talk about it on the show, please shoot an email to questions@transgendapod.com, click the Chat With Us button on our website, or DM us on social media.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having us again at Transjoy Fest 2024.
Woo! And thanks for listening. I've been Cam.
We've been Raven.
And this has been The Transgenda.
Love you all, except the bigots.
Woo!